It's time to move on with our to-do application, to-do list application in htmx. Since the last time, I managed to fix a few things. So before we had a problem that I was changing the Flask application and it wasn't reflected until I was actually restarting the server. But I managed to figure out how to do it, so let me quickly show you. Basically, you need this flaskenv.flaskenv file, and there you have a Flask app and the flaskenv variable. The flaskenv, when it's set to development, this means that it will be a development server, and because of this, changes will actually apply. So if we do, let's actually clean this, make run. It tells me there's a debugger pin there. Cool, cool, cool. So now let's say we just add a space somewhere and save. Okay, restarting. You can see that it reflects here. So this means that I can actually have an easier time implementing these things. All right, so the next step would be for us to do an add button. That's what I was thinking. Let's do an add button inside the list. And so basically when I get the first list, I should also have a button that applies to that list. How would we do that? Let's just think about it for a while. What I'm thinking is that I could have perhaps inside OL or after OL, something like button ID equals add first list, and we need an action and so on. So actually I will need an hx post equals /list /first, things like that, hx trigger and so on. So that's what I'm trying to accomplish, but I'm not actually sure how to do that easily, so we'll do this step by step once again using test-driven development. Now this test is getting a little big, but to be honest, I think it works. I think it's good enough for now. I'm not very bothered by it. I am getting a little bit bothered because it's too big and I don't like long tests. We can probably extract 4 or 5 tests out of it, or we could extract a custom assert, one that would check in one go all the things that we need for a list. So I'd rather have the custom assert approach, because I expect that if I will have multiple lists, then I will also need this assert. I will have duplicated tests and so on. So that's why I'm still not keen on refactoring it. I mean, yeah, it is a bit long, a bit not so nice, but I think I can live with it a little bit more. Okay, first list button, driver find element by ID, first list. Actually, it's not a button, it's first list add item. Okay, it's an add item button. It's one that we need to do for. And add item first list. Okay. And then for now, assert that this happens. Okay. Now let's run these tests. So make test. I have some coffee here. Let's take a sip. Unable to locate element. Cool. All right, that's good. This is what I wanted to see. Now the question is, where should this go? Let's add it here. Button ID equals add item first list. Button. Okay. This restarts. Now let's see that they should pass now. Now, as you can imagine, this is not very helpful. It's an empty button, but it's a good step ahead. Git commit. Okay, I have API and the test. Add button for item to the first list. Good. Okay, now we have this. Let's replace this assert with something better. Assert equal of add item and first listed item button dot text. Okay, now I'm not sure if text is the right one. Let's run the tests. The test should fail because we have a button with no text on it. All right, and apparently it fails with the right thing. Add item. All right. We can now remove this because actually what we need is a more precise test. I replaced the more general assert that something exists with a more specific assert that that element actually has a text. Let's write this, add the changes to Git. Git, oh, come on. Not my best typing. .py, cool. Add text on add item button. All right. So now, really curious to see this. Let's go to the URL, which is somewhere around here. Yeah. Okay, so we can now see that we have a button, add item, but that button doesn't have what we need to have. And it doesn't have the action yet. It doesn't have the other things that we need. So what do we actually need? We need then to be able to click this button and a new item to be created. And this is where I think it's time to move on to a new test. Because this test checks that we have what happens with the empty list on first call. And actually, let's rename this. empty list created correctly on first call. Excellent. Test add item to empty list. And so we have this part which is duplicated, and we have, I will need to have this. This is arrange, this is act. Okay, this is arrange. This is also arrange, and now we are doing act. Or if you prefer to think in terms of given, when, then. So given, we have the button. So given a new list, when I click the add item button, then a new item will be added. So how shall we do this? What I need is first list add item button dot click, and then I need to get this, find all the elements in the list, and then I need to assert the count, and this would be, in this case, 2 items, because we already have one. Okay, cool. Let's run this test. One test should fail, the other should pass. Test add item to empty list, 2 different than 1. Right, because clicking doesn't do a thing. So now what we need to do is to do hx post equals slash list how should we do this? First list? No. First list slash add. I'm actually not sure what would be the convention here for REST API. But we'll do it like this for now, and we can refactor it later. First list slash add item. Okay. hx trigger equals click hx swap, and okay, so now this is interesting. What do we swap? I guess we need to swap the outer HTML of this, but I actually don't know. Okay, so this just brings the button. Now let's quickly do the action. First list add methods equals post. What? Okay. Cool. Def new item. For now we only have one list, so we'll basically return the same thing. I'm just gonna copy everything, but I'll also have ally item 2. Obviously this is not what we want, right? But once again, this is how we do it using test-driven development. We go little by little and learn in the process how things work. Let's see. Theoretically, this should work, but there is... okay, so it doesn't. 2 different than 3. Oh. What? And actually the name is not good. Add item to first. Let's say just first list, because it's not actually empty. We didn't make it to be empty. Yeah, my guess is that the outer HTML is not the right thing. Well, let's see. So we have this, click add item. Okay, of course. So it doesn't replace everything. And now the question is, how do we make it replace specifically what we want? So it's time to look into this. Puts content inside the target element. HX target. So this is what we need to do. All right. So HX target. Okay, this will be interesting. So what I need to do now is to add a div. Actually, I have a div ID lists. And swap inner HTML. Does this still exist? Yeah, this still exists. So what I need to swap here is hx swap. We need to swap the inner HTML, but hx target needs to be lists. And I think this will solve the problem. Let's check it out. Still no good. 2 different than 3. This didn't work. This is a bit weird. Tested item. Oh, should work. Okay, surprise, surprise. Now the good thing is that we kind of know what the problem might be. If we do add item, okay, still adds at the end. By default, the content replaces the inner HTML of the target. HX target. So there should be, if you want other, you can use the HX target, which takes a CSS selector. That is trigger HX target. Yeah, so this should replace the lists. Okay, let's quickly check that add item has the right thing. It doesn't. Why? HX trigger click. Okay, so there's a problem. I'm pretty sure I saved this. Still doesn't seem to change anything. I know. Because we have duplication. Right. The second one was good, but the third one was not good. The first one was not good. So this is why we don't want duplication in our application, but it's okay for now, because now the test should pass. It's on a small scale until now, so it's manageable. Cool, cool, cool. Hey! We can do this now. Awesome. Right, let's try to do some refactoring. There's a bunch of things that I don't like. Quite a few, actually. So I think we will need... Where should we start? The tests are passing, so... Okay, first things first. Commit. And what we want is when, so this is what we did, when clicking add item button, a new item is to the list. Cool, done that. Now, where should we start refactoring? I'm thinking, focus here, because here we have a bit of a problem, and I think it's, I mean, obviously a template is trying to get out of it, but the template depends on how far we will go, and I don't want to work extra just to extrapolate and make something abstract when we don't need it. And I guess the interesting thing is we could do the... Okay, you'll understand why I'm laughing in a moment. So we could do the functional style list. Basically, the new item receives the whole list from the client. So basically this, fundamentally this thing. And adds an li to it and returns the new thing. And that would be very interesting, actually. I've never seen that done in this way. But it is the way you do lists in functional programming languages. Because they are immutable. So basically, you always get the items until now, and then you add a new item and you return the new thing. And that might actually be an interesting idea. Now, of course, adding an li, here it's easiest done through JavaScript, but we are using Python, and I'm not sure it's easy to do it, but I guess we can search for closing tag of OL and add an li before that. There's also a little thing about the count, but for now we only have a list with 2 items, so I don't really care yet. I will, but not yet. Okay, and now the interesting question is, can I send stuff in htmx? Now I'm just curious. I'm not sure I will do it in this way, although it's an interesting approach. And I'm here to learn new approaches, so why not? But let's see. So can we send, when we do post, when a user clicks, okay. When an element, okay, that's good. But what I'm really curious, hx post. post account enable and swap. Okay. You can control the swap strategy, you can control the event triggers, parameters. Parameters. An element that causes a request will include its value if it has one. If the element is a form, it will include the values of all inputs within it. If the element causes a non-get request, the values of all the inputs of the nearest enclosing form will be included. You can use htmx include with the CSS selector. Wow, this is very powerful. If you wish to filter, you can use htmx params. If you want to programmatically, you can use configure request event. So I think you could send, I could do htmx include, allows you to include additional element values in an AJAX request. If you include a non-input element, all input elements included will be enclosed will be included. So if I understand correctly, okay, now this is interesting. If I understand correctly, I can add at the end. Okay, let's first do a separation. Diff ID equals first list. I want to enclose this in a div, but I'd like to make sure. Let's organize this. Cool. And now let's run the tests. I'm not sure this will work. I might need to change a few things in the test. Okay, nothing to change in the test. Perfect. Now I'd like to make the same refactoring here. And run the tests. Always run the tests after refactoring. And maybe now you're asking, would it be, do I need to check for this div in my tests? And no, I don't, because it's not a behavior. I don't care. The only thing I care about in my tests is, do I have a list? Does the list have a number of items? When I click add item, do I have a new item, and so on? I don't care about the structure of the page. That is a detail. But now what I can do is to have this, first list, okay, first list container, because otherwise this will produce some issues. And actually I think it's a problem that the tests didn't pick on it. This is one reason why I don't like tests that just check that something exists. We had the same ID for the list and for the div. It checked it existed, probably found this one and said, yeah, okay, the list exists. Not that great. So actually, if I think about it, let's make this clearer. But first, time to commit. and say bridge master. What have we changed? Rep.py. Refactor, add div, add container for the list. Okay. And now I'm going here, and what I like to do is make the first test more specific. So we have this by ID first list header. Okay. Find element by ID first list. I like to do it by CSS selector OL first list. And this should find the right thing, I hope, if I remember my CSS selectors correctly. Okay, good. Gwrite, git commit. So now what have we done? Modify the test, make test more specific to find a list. Good. Done with that. Now, next thing, how about we, instead of hx target, instead of being lists, it's, well, actually, to be honest, this is lists, right? And this is, no, how does this work? Oh no. Add item first list. So this returns the first list, but when I click, the target should be first list container. And here we should not have this. And the target should be first list container, because that allows us to add multiple things. Let's check it out. I'm trying to organize this a bit better. Good, tests are working. And now I'm curious about one thing. Doesn't work. Actually it works the second time, but we cannot see it. If I click add, yeah. Just the thing is, it returns the same thing all the time. It's not dynamic, of course. Gwrite. And I think this is all we've changed. Commit. Just the app.py. Replace only list container contents on add item. Good. So now, why did I want to do this? I wanted to do this because I can now send, oops. And actually, how about we do something different? So add item for, all right, I'm thinking too far ahead. Let's focus on the job at hand. I was thinking about just getting this, but I'm not sure. We'll see. Let's take it one step at a time. So what I'd really like to do is to send as a parameter, well, ideally the contents of the list. And how can we do that? So we've seen that what we can do is to have with my list a set of input fields and perhaps keep them hidden with the same value as this. So let's just take it out, check it out. I'm now in experimentation mode. What this means, I will try one small thing, add an input, and I just want to see whether it is sent through the post request and how I can make it to be sent. Okay, so let's say input ID equals item, type equals text, and then say item 1. All right. Actually, good job. Value equals, my God, expert programmer. Cool. Add item. So question is this sent? Okay, content type form. Interesting. Request no payload. Okay, so this doesn't work by default, which means that we need to have htmx include on the button. htmx post, htmx trigger, htmx include equals, and we need the CSS first list. All right. And if we are doing this, still no payload. Did we change the writing? Probably not. Oh no, this is list. htmx target, htmx include. First list. htmx include, okay. Now we have it. All right, clean this up, refresh. Let's clean it up, add. And I think it already tells me, oh, initiator, no. What I want to see, request no payload. I think I need a form. I think I need a form. The values of all inputs of the nearest enclosing form. If the element is a form, if the element calls the values of the inputs of the nearest enclosing form, htmx include values. Let's try. I'm just curious about one thing. First list input. Still no. Let's see. Did we get the right thing? Button. Why? Oh, because I think I only added it. I think I haven't changed it everywhere, and this is a problem. Okay, so let's make sure that we are making the right changes. So when I go to /lists, okay, this should work. First list input. Yeah, this works, and now let's clean this up, add item. Still nothing. So I assume that we need to have a form. Form ID first list form. Okay. Let's see that we have the form. Yeah, this is here. Network, clean this up, add item, post. Still no payload. There's something I don't understand. And by default, an element that causes a request will include its value. If the element is a form, okay. The element causes a non-guest request. Let's just include hx trigger, hx post, hx trigger, first list, hx include, first list form. So now we are calling directly with the form. This is a form, and this says first list form. Good. Network, clean this up, add item. Still no payload. Why? hx var. hx vals. So I don't know why this doesn't work. Element that causes or request will include this value. If the element is a form, okay, the element calls the values of all the inputs of the nearest enclosing form will be included. If you wish to include the values of other elements, so by default, if I move this here, and I move this here, in theory, I will not need to have hx include. So now this is the target, and we have an input, and we have a form that contains everything. Now if I do add item, still no payload. All right, something is weird here. And actually, there are some things that you can preserve during the swap. Okay. That becomes interesting. So how does this work? htmx include name equals email. Ah, I don't need the form, I just need this thing. Let's remove the form. htmx target, htmx include, and then hashtag item. Okay. Network, clean this up, add item, post. Who? This is the response. No payload. This is weird. So everything should work, but it's not. And I wonder if it isn't because I don't have this here. Well, that doesn't make any sense. So first I should be able to item 1, item 2. Let's just keep it like this for now. This is just for my own sanity, to make sure that I'm not overlooking something that's very obvious. Item 1, and item, okay. Maybe there's something wrong with, still no. Okay, let's try input. Did I use name or ID? Type text, input ID. Include, let's do it like this. Name equals item. Maybe the CSS selector doesn't work. Okay, so let's see, is this the right? Yeah, that's the right one. Network, clean this up, add post. Ha! Okay, so it didn't work. It didn't work with the CSS selector. Cool. Glad we figured this out. I was starting to think that I'm going that I need a break because I don't understand things anymore, but all is good now. So this is interesting because what we actually need is, I mean, there are a few ways we could deal with this. One way is to have these inputs that duplicate this. So it could be input ID item 1, name equals item 1, type text, value item 1. And then have things like this. wonder, could I just have input here? Without all this. Let's see if this still works. So once again, now I'm in experimentation mode, trying to figure out how this thing works so that I can write my next test or refactor. And this is something I do from time to time when I need to request. Yep. Okay, now the interesting thing would be, so this is htmx include. Now I've seen something else. Actually, you know what? Okay, too many ideas at the same time. Let's just focus on this one. You can use htmx include if you wish to filter htmx params, if you want to programmatically modify. But I think we also found htmx vals. htmx vals. Ooh. Allow you to add to the parameters that will be submitted with an AJAX request. The value of an attribute is JSON. If you want for htmx vals to evaluate, you prefix with JavaScript or JS. By default, it has to be JSON. Yeah, I don't care about security for now. I imagine this can be a problem for security if you don't validate the input. Always validate your inputs. So, htmx vals. This is good. Because another option would be for this to be, yeah, basically I have two types of duplication to choose from. Let's remove this as well. I can choose from duplication between each OL, each LI element and an input element that stores the same data but is a form. Or I can choose duplication between all the elements and the JSON that goes inside the form, inside the htmx vals variable. Well, it's a tag, an attribute, whatever it is. Don't quote me on that. And I can choose one of these duplications, and whichever it is, okay, we'll choose one of them and go with it and see how this happens. So this is input item 1. Okay, and now let's do input item 2, name item 2, value item 2. Okay, refresh, add item, and now what I'd like to see is this request. Okay, item 1, item 2. Interesting. Now I'm wondering, could I have an array there instead? HTML post form array of input fields. Because I remember that you can account choice value, choice value. This will go like this. So if I'm doing something like items, actually the ID is useless right now. Let's remove it. Items. 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 No. Remove the ID. Items. Okay. And now I'm curious what happens here. Add items. Okay, so this should be fine. And now what I'm curious is clean up, add item. Oh, cool. You know what this means? We have a correspondence between items, between an array and the actual list. This is interesting. So we learned how to do this. We use hx include input, and we have a bunch of inputs here, but the bunch of inputs actually have a name that's items array, and this will be passed along as an items collection. Now I'm curious how to get this on Flask on the server side. I don't remember. It's been a while since I've done this. Let's see how we can map values. Variable rules. Projects about slash hello slash name. So wait a minute, how does this happen? If I get a post request with show the post to the given ID. You can add variable sections by marking sections with variable name. Your function then receives. Optionally, you can use a converter. And can I get an array? And this is in Jinja. We can use render template. And Flask configures Jinja to engine. Okay, so we could use Jinja to engine if we really need to. Accessing request data. Okay. So let's see. Flask map input array to post variable. Okay, not the greatest thing. This is how I use arrays here. That's not what I was looking for. Of course, one way is to do this manually, but I'd rather have it. Let's say if I do add but I don't have it with the slash. What I really need is to specify a variable. Oh, items like this. Let's see, does this still work? First of all, let's see if this works. Okay, doesn't work anymore. This is the request response not found. Add items. I don't understand how this works, obviously. You can add variable sections to you. I don't want to add variable section. So what I actually want to do is to get the from request. Okay, I guess we'll have to do that manually. Request.path, request.method, request.form. Of something. Okay, let's do that. And we need to import from Flask import request. Request. Okay. Add items equals request form items. Let's see if this still works. Invalid syntax. No, I don't think we need def. Okay, so this still works. And now let's make a quick change just to say return items of 0. Let's see. Up. What is that? I'm not sure it did the right thing. Return items. Item 1. I only got item. Okay. I only got item 1 because there was only one. All right, so what have we learned? We learned that we can have this input that doubles each list item. Should I check for it? I don't think so. This is basically refactoring. I don't actually need to write tests for it, because what I really want to do is to open the path to implement adding a new item and a new item. And so what I really wanted to do is to refactor this and say, okay, we have this thing and this works. And now actually the test should be working. Let's quickly check it out to see if things are working. But I think they are. Okay, tests are passing, cool. And now what I really want to do is to replace this with item. So we'll say items. Now the interesting thing is that the first time, let's quickly see. So I can actually do gwrite git commit refactor server-side code to allow for removing duplication. I haven't yet removed duplication, but I'm on the verge of removing duplication. And so what I want to do is to have this. I need to check one thing first. I need to check when I do add item the first time, is this it just has one element. So when it has one element, then I need probably something special on Flask, because right now it only sees one. Flask read array from form array inputs. Okay, so we have this, cool. Process request values, okay. Form contents join form data dot items. Form data is request dot values. Why is this? It's always request dot values. Okay. So this is actually request of values. Dot items. Let's quickly see what this does. No. It returns something that doesn't make sense, which I guess means that this means, let's try it quickly. Generator object is what? Quest dot values item for item inform data. Item for item info. Ah, I see. So actually I need to do, okay, let's just do this. because this will return this. And instead of form data, we'll do request values dot items. So that thing is a generator. I can only access it return join. I don't think we need all this. Can we do it like this? Why? What? Ah. Style like this. Items, item 1. So actually what I need to do is a bit of string concatenation. Okay, so I guess we'll stop here for now and we'll continue with refactoring this in a way that allows us to add more elements. And in order to do so, basically what I want to do is to build this part by using the data from the variable items that is getting sent to through post. All right,